Hello. Today I thought maybe I would try to cover a little bit about the topic of Tourette's and neurodivergence. And recently, within I think the past year, at least that I was made aware of, Tourette's was considered by the Tourette Association of America, or the TAA, to be a form of neurodivergence. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what that means and what we're describing when we say neurodivergence. Now, it's been a while since I've made one of these videos. I'm thinking it's probably been about a year. And so I'd say I feel a little bit nervous about this working correctly, but hopefully I've got my setup here working as it should. My iPad might move my camera around on me because that's something that it now does. It's okay if it does. So let's get into it now. So yes, Tourette's is now considered to be a form of neurodivergence, and this gets pretty easy to understand, I believe, when we consider the different types of effects that Tourette's tends to produce in an individual's life experience. And these experiences are often a little bit different from what other people might experience, thus they are divergent. So one of the first things that is different for individuals with Tourette's is the presence of a premonitory urge. Most people don't seem to experience a premonitory urge prior to actions that then compels taking an action, as tics are. Tics are the action that are taken in response to the premonitory urge, so that's my idea there. So that's a bit of a difference. We have some understanding, kind of where the premonitory urge manifests, how that happens. But our knowledge of this is not fantastic, and we're still learning. But we know that it's a difference, that individuals who do not have Tourette's don't seem to experience that. Or if they do, it's a very different nature. Difficulties with habituation. This is another difference that seems to be present in individuals with Tourette's. So habituation is how the brain will automatically filter out information that it does not need to be attending to. So if there's a particular sound that is just constantly present in the environment, such as the rain falling outside, then for most people, their brain will filter that out after a little while, because if the brain is able to accurately identify that that sound does not need to be attended to, so it lets it go. This happens with many things. For most people, they will filter out a lot of different information, including sounds outside, the sound from overhead fluorescent lighting, which kind of emits a constant buzzing sound, the sound of a TV, which also emits a sort of high-frequency buzzing sound. People usually filter this out, and it's easy enough for their brain to do, and they no longer experience distress from it. Individuals with Tourette's seem to have more difficulty with habituating. Their brains continue to attend to different stimuli present in the environment for longer and may be unable to filter it out at all. In essence, this means that an individual with Tourette's is much more likely to be overwhelmed by sensory stimulation, and that can lead to other behaviors such as avoidance, frustration, or other types of stress responses. And that may be surprising to other people because they feel like perhaps it's a relatively calm and pleasant environment. So they don't understand why the person with Tourette's is getting stressed out or why they are agitated. One common place I think that tends to show up is in a school environment. Students with Tourette's may appear to have a harder time paying attention to what is intended in the classroom, such as what the teacher is saying or what the assignment is. And they may appear more easily frustrated, agitated, or engage in other behaviors that are intended to essentially get them out of that room. Sometimes children will actually engage in misbehavior in an effort to escape from that classroom, to be taken away from it, so that they can finally feel more at ease, because their brain simply identified that works. Related to that is another behavior that we tend to describe as overplanning or overactivation. And so this is a response that the individual's brain gives to an anticipated or expected event. So individuals with Tourette's seem much more likely to attend to anticipated or expected events in the future as if they are real in the present. So they may be expecting, like, I might be late, and if I'm late, then I might get in trouble, or people might look at me funny, or whatever, and therefore they don't want to be late. And so they may become much more agitated in the present because they are already responding to being late, the expected or anticipated event. So for other people, their brains don't seem to attend to this as much. Their brains, essentially, in a manner of speaking, are better able to determine what is present and what is future, and separating those two things out, so they don't respond as much to the future anticipated events. But for an individual with Tourette's, the brain tends to seemingly identify these patterns and expectations and responds well in advance to it. In a manner of speaking, this is also related to the phenomenon we typically refer to as anxiety, which is both useful and frustrating. So anxiety has a lot of benefit for us. It has kept us alive as a species. It helps us to prepare for different events. We make savings accounts and so forth. So anxiety is very helpful, except sometimes it produces so much distress and we can't act upon it that we simply end up with maladaptive behaviors, which may include avoiding situations where we expect anxiety will show up. Then the last point I wanted to kind of cover, because I'm already at about 7 minutes, is differences in processing of social stimuli. And this is something that I've only become more aware of recently from the research, that there are findings that now show that individuals with Tourette's do respond differently to social stimuli than, I guess we would say, neurotypical people, the majority of people. And this can include completely missing or overlooking stimuli, such as subtle social behaviors, or misinterpreting stimuli as perhaps meaning something that they didn't actually. And that may relate more to that anxiety again. Individuals with Tourette's, of course, tend to exhibit very high levels of anxiety compared to the rest of the population. And so if you are trying to deal with a social situation, then anxiety may be helpful sometimes, but it also may just prevent you from being able to engage and respond the way other people are wanting you to, and that can be very frustrating and make it difficult to develop and maintain social relationships. And so that's another one of those forms of neurodiversity that tends to manifest with Tourette's. So the last point I wanted to make is that there are what we now refer to as co-occurring conditions that are common with Tourette's, much more frequent than in the general population, and those include ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactive disorder, OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, ASD, or autism spectrum disorder, and difficulties with regulating intense anger. So all those things tend to manifest, and they seem to relate to some of these basic mechanisms that I was describing earlier, that these sorts of underlying differences in the way the brain is organizing and learning to respond to the environment can produce some very challenging experiences. So that's all I wanted to say for today, and I'm going to wrap up here because I'm at 9 minutes now, and I feel like I don't want it to be a long video, though it may already be. So thank you for listening and watching, and I hope the information proves useful for you.